Thank you, Panima. Hello, everyone. Good evening, good morning, and good afternoon. Today we have a session on Shakti leadership. This is day 4 of the POP festival, and we are having a pre-recorded video for this session. So, this session is basically by Ms. Nilima Bhatt, who is a visionary in the field of personal mastery, leadership, gender equality, and well-being. Her extensive and pioneering body of work is encompassed in her two books, Shakti Leadership, Embracing Feminine and Masculine Power in Business, and My Cancer is Me, The Journey from Illness to Wholeness. Together, they outline new and cutting edge holistic and integrated approaches to leadership and resilience needed to create a world that works for all. She is a global keynote speaker, facilitator, and coach for conscious leadership, diversity, and inclusion and integral health. Ms. Bhatt headed corporate communications for ITC Hotel, Philips, and ESPN Star Sports before co-founding Roots and Wings, a leadership consultancy in 2004. An expert in Indian wisdom and wellness traditions, she is a trained dancer, certified Sivananda teacher, and practitioner of the integral yoga of Sri Aurobindo and the Mother. She is an active supporter of conscious capitalism and women's international networking, and is on the board of Peace Through Commerce and Mix R. Ms. Bhatt is currently focused on building the Shakti Fellowship, a global network of conscious women leaders and entrepreneurs who collaborate to create peace, prosperity, and beauty through the exchange of multiple forms of capital. We have a pre recorded video from her. I'll just play it.
So we are down to our last session. And, you know, we always worry as an organizer, are we going to repeat content? Because I can imagine how much Kristen has to curate. Don't repeat because this has been done earlier. And as I was listening to the earlier two speakers, I was thinking, wow, are they going to say something that's going to come up in my slides? But such is the power of synchronicity when we are on purpose that actually everything just flows with such precision, it's uncanny. So I'm really grateful to you, Anissa, right? Yes, and Dahlia, because what I'm going to share now is just like closing it out, closing the loop on this. My invitation to all of you is when I wrote this, I'm just a very intense person. So when I wrote this book, it's a very intense book. And people say to me, oh my God, it's so deep. It's so deep. So please be ready for some deep. Okay? Bear with me and join me there. Let's go one level deeper with what you heard this morning. Okay? So we heard about win, but I love the idea that the only win is a win-win. Because you realize that even though you may win sometimes at the expense of someone else, eventually they seek revenge, and it ends up being a lose-lose. Okay? So there is a deep discernment in recognizing that the only win is a win-win. And so I like to say, why lead with only half your power? Because at the end of the day, everything in leadership is about exercising power to get the outcome you want. Win, correct? So really the underlying game is a game of power. How do you do power, right? So when I was thinking about the idea of power and getting really a handle on this thing, I realized there are many kinds of power, and at a minimum, there are two kinds. And when I take this forward, you'll see it's broken into 4 kinds. But at a minimum, why lead with only half your power when there may be 2 kinds of power? I'm diving right in, talking to you about the idea of Shakti, because the book is called Shakti Leadership. So the first question is, what is Shakti? Even people in India have used this word so many times that they perhaps haven't understood the depth and the full spectrum of this word. Shakti, in a nutshell, is the innate power of existence, right? Think about it. Right now, your brain is having thoughts. Your electrons are moving around your nucleus in every atom. The cosmos is moving. There is tremendous power, fuel, energy that is moving things. If this power, this fuel of existence didn't exist, there would be no existence. Okay, so pause and note that there is this tremendous power that's innate to existence. And that power is called Shakti. It's infinite, it's creative, it's inviolable, it's inclusive, because everything that happens in Shakti. What's interesting is that this is like the genius and the enduring legacy of India. And when I was talking leadership, I realized everyone's talking about power, but no one's talking about Shakti. So let's bring this wisdom from India, that is a universal idea, and let's bring it to the dialogue on leadership. So, what's Shakti in leadership? Very simply, it's the power of presence. I heard the words earlier. We talked about presence in an earlier workshop. I don't know if you've gone deeply into what is presence, how do you cultivate presence. It's like centeredness and mindfulness. But when you are present, when you have stepped back from your ego, right, and you can stand in the ground of your true being, it's not a dull, dead, inert place. It's a profound, alive place. You are energized. There is a power that's moving through you. And that power is Shakti. Okay? So, Shakti in leadership is the power of presence. Shakti gives you the agency to act. So, presence brings you equanimity, but its accompanying power provides the creative energy to innovate conscious outcomes. Otherwise, we are busy creating win-lose and lose-lose outcomes. Okay? So I want a quick exercise on really checking in on your power base, right? Ask yourself, what is my power base? There is true power and there is false power. So true power, in a nutshell, is when we are doing win-win in any leadership transaction. It's doing power with, right? Where both of us can win and the outcome is what's for the best for all. It's the force for greater good, right? And it is based on Shakti, which is your internal source. It is unlimited, it cannot be taken away from you, and it lasts. Anything you create from Shakti lasts because that's what existence itself is wishing to evolve and bring forth. You're simply the agent through whom it comes. We know better the other, which is false power, which is typically what is the power we do when we are in some kind of a position that requires us to get things done and we're feeling powerless, okay? So we do win-lose, which is power over. Someone's trying to push the other one down, and sometimes a manipulative version would be to do power under, which is give your power away, right? It's the force of narrow self-interest in that moment. And most often, we exercise a power which comes from privilege, right? That is why everyone wants to be CEO. Everyone wants to be, in a position of power, have the rank, have the visiting card, have the big car, have the status, right? So it's all about an external source that you're seeking and you're kind of reaching for. The thing is, these external sources are finite. I often tell the story of many of my uncles who are bureaucrats in senior positions in India. It's all about power, right? And they are little fellows, but they walk around looking very big. And people rush to open doors for them, right? And then they retire. And the day they retire, you don't recognize them anymore. They're like balloons who have just, right? They fizzled out and they wandered around like ghosts in the corridors of their home. And I look at my aunts and what happened to him, right? So that's because their entire life was built on the privilege that they had as a badge on the outside, their rank, right? And when that was taken away from them, they didn't know who they are anymore. Their identity was that, not the true self within, because they hadn't taken the time to get in touch with that, to cultivate that, to engage in relationship with that. They didn't know who they really are. They were their label, right? That's why I said it can be taken away from you. And worst of all that effort and energy to gain privilege and to put in the hard work, whatever you create from false power ultimately fails. You know, my teacher would say it's like beating water in a cup. You feel very busy, right? And then you put your hand out, the water's gone right back, flat, correct? So much for that hard work. So, why not work with true power and get to Shakti? And we're all laughing at these ideas, but the truth is we are somewhere in between, right? Sometimes we work from true power, which we're doing power with, but sometimes when we lose presence, we fall into ego-based, fear-based strategies, right? And when I'm talking about ego, I'm talking about the small self that gets insecure. So some more deeper questions. Power over or power with? Ask yourself. Think of a key relationship in your life. How do you exercise power in this relationship? Is it mostly power over or power with? Think of a person who models power over leadership and someone who models power with leadership. What can you learn about your own relationship with power? You know, our global leaders and American leaders, of course, come to mind right away. There was Obama, and then there's Trump, and you can kind of see who falls in which bucket, right? How can you watch for power over dynamics and shift to power with dynamics from now on? It happens all the time. It happens in real time. And it's about being present enough to be able to insert pause, stop, and then pivot and respond rather than get into your reactive personas. Notice how and when you may be giving away your power or unconsciously tend to lose it. Why do you think this happens, and how can you prevent it? Each of us has a unique way we lose power. But according to the Enneagram theory, there are three typical ways. We lose power when we rush into our gut and we get into fight, flight, defense, or when we go into our heart and we want to be validated and we start promoting ourselves, trying to push and sell ourselves on something. Or we go into our head and we start worrying. There is fear and anxiety, and self-doubt, right? So these are typical three ways we tend to lose power: by defense, promote, and fear. And the way back to power is to unhook from these three places and return to your ground of being. A very simple way is to return to your spine and start breathing through it again. And here's a powerful idea. To come into your full power, you need to become a whole person. What do I mean? In the Indic wisdom, and there are versions of this in other traditions as well, our full self, the highest we can be, our divinity, is called the Ardha Narishwar, which is the half male, half female God. Right? If you see, half of this person is called Shiva, the divine masculine aspect in ourselves, and the other half, the left half, is Shakti, the divine feminine aspect in ourselves. And the interesting thing is, regardless of gender, all of us are this. Okay? A conscious leader is whole because a conscious person is whole, has access to both his masculine side and his feminine side in a way that is healthy in both expressions. Okay? And as we are growing older, this is in a way what we are growing towards anyway. I often joke, Father Lancy Pereira, who's my dear mentor, Jesuit priest, and he says, you know, Nilima, but it's true. Look, it's not just psychological wholeness, it also happens physiologically. As women grow older, they grow beards. Yes. And as men grow older, they grow breasts. So, what is the purpose of polarity? Why does this duality exist? And a brilliant way to remember this is that of a horseshoe magnet. If that horseshoe magnet did not exist with a North Pole and a South Pole, the space between it would be an inert space, correct? But because we put a horseshoe magnet there, now what happens to the space in between? It has got magnetized. Now, when you put a wire through that space, what do you generate? Electricity, current, power, right? So the purpose of polarity, that nothing is in vain that nature has created. Polarity exists as gender and as inside each of us, as our masculine and our feminine, our yin and our yang forces, in order to release in that creative tension a chi, a power, a Shakti that can then go out and give us the energy we need to get things done. As my daughter would say, get shit done. Right? We need power. So, this is the one slide of the entire presentation that you need to remember. It's masculine and feminine power put into what's called a polarity map. This is the brilliant work of Dr. Barry Johnson and Polarity Partnerships. Recognizing that it's not an either or, but a both and that is needed to come into our full power. So what we don't want is to block your Shakti. What you want is to release your full power. And for that, you need to leverage the best of your feminine and the best of your masculine power traits. What are these power traits? There is a positive to both and there is a negative to both. So positive power traits would be empathy, gentleness, inclusion, nurturing, openness, creativity, variety and flavor. It's called rasa, right? We love the juice of life, and that's feminine. Trust, vulnerability, harmony. These are beautiful, necessary power traits. They give you agency, okay? And they're needed in leadership. When the feminist movement is trying to really, speak for the feminine, unfortunately, some of the movement is looking down on the masculine and calling it all wrong and all bad. But they are looking at what's the unhealthy masculine, which is aggressive, cruel, mechanical, arrogant, insensitive, violent, power-hungry, spiritually empty. Now, these are words I haven't written. I just put it out there to a group like you, and they gave back these words. Okay? So it's not a complete set. You can keep adding or subtracting as you will and wish. Okay? Now, when people call this out as unhealthy masculine, they don't realize that actually there is an unhealthy feminine as well. Okay? When you do one to the neglect of the other, you fall below the line and get the worst of that as well. Okay? So what is the unhealthy feminine? Take a deep breath, ladies. Smothering, sentimental, needy, dependent, exploited, unfocused, irrational, weak, and manipulative. We've all been here, right? And let us please remember, not just the good men in the room, but all the good masculine in ourselves that has got us here today. There is the healthy masculine, okay? Let's not diss that. In fact, we cannot do without one or the other. So the healthy masculine, what are the power traits? Clarity, assertiveness, focus, direction, order, discipline, structure, discernment, strength, convergence, getting the job done, getting to action, right? How do you work with this grid for yourselves? What is the secret sauce? The secret is to never fall below the line. Okay? You've got to learn how to breathe like an inhale and exhale between the best of your feminine and the best of your masculine. When you neglect one for the other, because as leadership styles go, some of us have a dominant masculine leadership style, and some of us have a dominant feminine leadership style. It's good to find yourself and know, since that is your preferred persona, to know how to do it in a way that doesn't forget the healthy other, complementary other. Okay? So if you don't do the best of both, you're doomed to fall below the line and get the worst of both. It's like me saying to you, inhale or exhale, choose. Why do we think it's a choice? Why do we think I only want to be feminine and I only want to be masculine? When those people are saying, don't be a girl, Dahlia, it's like, why would you deny a necessary part of yourself? You're going to die. It is not sustainable to operate only on one polarity. It simply is not. In fact, that's the reason for all the problems in the world today. Our denial of the feminine side, regardless of our gender, has made us hyper-masculine. Toxic masculinity is the big subject of the day. We've all been involved, and we've all caused it together. Right? So let's step back and remember that we can't do one without the other. We need both. The way to work with this for each of you, please make note. What happens when you fall below the line and become too feminine? What is a typical behavior that starts happening in you when you become too feminine and you fall below the line in the unhealthy box? I'll give you an example for myself. This is called an early warning sign. My early warning sign when I fall below the line is I start becoming needy, right? I start feeling sorry for myself. I wish someone would, validate me, right? And I start feeling needy. Now that I know the polarity map, I catch myself when neediness as a feeling arises. I don't shut it out. I acknowledge it. I honor it as a good signal. Emotions are signals, valuable signals. I take it as an early warning sign, and what do? You move across diagonally to the other side to the healthy masculine. So you take an action step that leverages some masculine superpower that you do have. That is an easy reach for you. And that is your best way out from under the line. You balance yourself from too feminine to the right mix of masculine now. In my example, when I'm feeling needy, the best reach for me is self-care. Obviously, right? I'm fully capable of validating myself, meeting my needs myself, instead of waiting for someone else to, meet my needs. I move to self-care. Self-care is a very healthy masculine behavior, right? And similarly, note down yours. What could be an action step? So find your early warning sign, find your action step. Equally, what is your unhealthy warning sign that you've fallen into too much masculine energy? You're becoming hyper-masculine. What is your early warning sign? What is a typical behavior or emotion that arises for you? In my case, it's judgment. I think I'm so smart. I start judging everybody as inferior, right? I become arrogant and judgmental. So when the voice of judgment now rises in me, because I have made note that this is a signal, it's an early warning of too much masculine energy inside the psyche, pause and move across to the other side, to the healthy feminine. What is my superpower, healthy feminine action step that I know and comes easy to me? In my case, it's compassion, right? And it's something I can do when I put my mind to it. So think about it. As long as I flow between self care and compassion, self care and compassion, I'm in this healthy place above the line. And when I forget the balance of self care and compassion, care for self and compassion for others, when I forget that balance, it's easy. I fall below the line, and my early warning signs right there. Okay? So I hope each of you has been able to identify your early warnings and then your action steps. I love the way when I was teaching this in Atlanta, this wonderful woman, Bonnie Wan, who's Taiwanese, she comes to me and says, next time my husband and I have a fight, I'm going to say, stop, let's separate. Now you go there and I'll go there. And then let's come back and meet. This is so true. This map can save your marriage, your relationship. I promise you. Okay, go and share this at home with all your significant others. All right, moving on. So, where we get to is called the inner wedding, the dance of love and power, where your heartful man gets married to your mindful woman, right? And the masculine is the part in us that typically blocks things, right? So the inner man learns to say yes, opens boundaries up to vulnerability, and finds love. And equally, the inner woman learns to say no, Anisa, right? She creates those boundaries, those healthy boundaries needed to gain security and to reclaim her power. And we have to have both these capacities in ourselves. Psychological wholeness is the great holy grail we are after, the holy family reunion. And your individuated self is an aspect where you have access to your healthy parent, you have access to your healthy child. Okay? You have access to your inner woman, and you have access to your inner man. And in a nutshell, if there's one line you remember from this entire talk, let it be the wise fool of tough love. The wise is your inner parent, the fool is your inner child. Please remember to lighten up, keep that sense of wonder, laugh, play. It's medicine. We need our child. Okay? Tough with love. Okay? Tough is the inner man, love is the inner woman. Any leadership moment you're going to encounter will need one of these four and nothing else. This comes from Jungian psychology and archetypal psychology, that there are basically four core archetypes. Any situation will be met with one of these four. And if the situation isn't giving you the response you need and want, stop, reflect. Am I using the wrong archetype? Should I be doing fool when I'm being too wise? Should I be doing love when I'm being too tough? Okay? Very simply, one of these four is the master key for any leadership situation. The journey through the 5 elements of Shakti leadership, and in a way, this is the book launch of Shakti leadership in Singapore for the first time. And so I just thought I'll walk you quickly through. The model is the journey through the 5 elements of Shakti leadership. First, cultivate presence, your master key, without which nothing else happens. From there, you come into Shakti, your true power. Then you can gain psychological wholeness, and then you gain flexibility. It's about knowing when to be wise, when to be foolish, when to be tough, when to be love. And bringing all that together to find your purpose and to live a life that's on purpose, to be congruent with who you are. The leader you are is the person you are. So that's congruence. We put a circle around this for the heroic journey, the work of Joseph Campbell and then Maureen Murdoch, that men and women journey differently to come into their wholeness, to come into their full power, to individuate, but the map is similar. It's just the versions are different. It's brilliant. How many of you know Joseph Campbell? Wonderful. I highly, highly recommend it. You will never be the same again. And the cycle keeps going on. We never perfect it, of course. Just when you think you've peaked one mountain, the next one awaits. But to come into any of these 5 power bases, you're going to have to make a journey. Nothing is given to you on a platter. Power never comes as a gift. You have to earn it. That's the only way you're going to be surviving. Otherwise, you haven't earned your space. In closing, exercise power mindfully, do win-win power with, not win-lose power over. It's about masculine and feminine power, not masculine or feminine power. It's time to restore gender relations. They're deeply broken right now because of the patriarchy that both have actually contributed to causing. But it's time to restore these gender relations. It's time to become a whole man and a whole woman in order to become a whole person and a whole leader. We have a Shakti mission to create 100,000 Shakti leaders by 2030, building a global network of 100,000 Shakti stewards who collaborate to create peace, prosperity, and beauty through the exchange of multiple forms of capital. Let's rise in love together instead of falling in love and making each other less than who we are. We have a fellowship program, a 9-month program certified with the University of San Diego. Look it up on our website. We would love to have you. Women from all over the world, they go through a deep journey of self-transformation. And what then they create as their game-changing projects are just amazing. And my last slide, Shakti Leadership. That's my email ID and my co-author Raj Sisodia, who's
Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much. May I request everyone to switch on their camera and we can have a group picture. Everyone, please. Give me a second. So, are you all ready? Vishnu sir, Anando, Stuti, may I request you to please switch on your camera? Okay, great. Thank you, guys. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Have a nice day.
Thank you.
Thank you. You too.
Thank you, you too.
Bye bye.
Take care.
Take care. See you.
Be safe.
Bye bye.